May I invite one to deliver the presentation today? Silakan, kelompok 1.
Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and good day everybody.
Good day.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Yeah, first of all, I would like to say thank you for the God who has given us a chance to meeting for today, and Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was broadcast from the Sapachira to the Webinar, from the darkness to the lightness. So our group one discuss about basic understanding of philosophy. Next. Okay, basic of understanding of philosophy. So this agenda is we want to discuss about the first is the meaning of philosophy itself, and the second the value of philosophy. The third is how to do philosophy, and the fourth is in science, philosophy, and the last is the use of philosophy. Next. So the first is the meaning of philosophy. Next. Okay. If we think about the philosophy, the basically we in our mind is love, basic, and critical. And then how is philosophy itself? With the etymology meaning, the word philosophy comes from the Greek word philosophia, which comes from the verb philosophing, which means to love wisdom. The word also comes from the Greek word philosophies, which come from the verb philen, which means to love, or philia, which means love, and sophia, which means wisdom. So for make a simple, or to understand about the what is philosophy, definition of philosophy as a science in system philosophy is philosophy which usually translate as a love of wisdom. Next. Okay, according to the expert about the philosophy, the first is Plato. Plato said that philosophy is a science that is interested in attaining clear truth. And the second is Aristoteles. The philosophy is a science that includes the truth contained in the science of metaphysics, logic, ethnic, economic, politic, and aesthetic. And the last is Al-Farabi say that philosophy is the sign of what exists in the real world. Next. So the value of philosophy will be continued by my friend.
Aisyah Sapnur.
Okay, the value of philosophy. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Kak Indah.
Yeah.
Kak Indah. Kak.
Nggak kelihatan di sana?
Kak Indah.
Iya, sudah ganti. Yang lain lihat yang the value of philosophy?
Iya, sudah the value of philosophy.
Iya, sudah lihat. Aisyah Sapnur jaringan tak mungkin.
Okay, the value of philosophy. We humans are very prone to suffer from a psychological predicament we might call the security blanket paradox. We know the world is full of hazard, and like passenger after a week's work, we tend to let on to something for a sense of safety. Okay, next slide, please. Next slide, please.
Wait, your connection.
Oh.
Wait a minute, wait.
Okay. Okay, Russell described the intellectual consequence of security blanket paradox vividly. The man who has no tincture of philosophy goes through life impressioned in the prejudice derived from common sense, from the habitual belief of his age or his nation, and from convictions which have grown up in his mind without his cooperation or consent of his deliberate reason. The life of the instinctive man is set up within the circle of his private interests. In such a life, there is something reversed and confined in comparison with which the philosophical life is calm and free. The private world of instinctive interest is a small one, set in the minds of a great and powerful world which must, sooner or later, lay out private world its reins. Okay, next slide, please. The primary value of philosophy, according to Russell, is that it lessens the grip of uncritically held opinion and open the mind to a liberating range of new possibilities to explore. The value of philosophy is in effect to be sought largely in its very essentiality. Philosophy, though unable to tell us with certainty what is the true answer to the doubt which it raises, it's able to suggest many possibilities which enlarge our thought and free them from the tyranny of custom. Those while diminishing our feeling of certainty as to what things are. It greatly increases our knowledge as to what they may be. It removes to somewhat or arrogant dogmatisms of those who have never traveled into the region of liberating doubt, and it keeps alive our sense of wonder by showing familiar things in unfamiliar aspects. That's all for me. It will be continued by my friends.
Okay, thank you very much for the change. The next material will be explained by myself, Al-Amin Dasari, how to do philosophy. Sorry. As a kind of inquiry, philosophy is aimed at establishing knowledge and understanding. Even where certain knowledge about a particular issue can be had, there are often interesting things to have learned about why we can have certainty and what sorts of less reasons there are for against that issue. Once we raise a philosophical issue, whether about the nature or justice or about the nature of reality, we want to ask what can be said for against the various possible answers to our questions. Here we are engaged in formulating arguments. Some arguments give us better reasons or accepting their conclusion than the others. Once we have formulated an argument, we want to evaluate the reasoning it offers. Philosophy is aimed at establishing knowledge and understanding. If you want to know what philosophers do, this is a very good answer. Philosophers formulate and evaluate arguments. Once philosophical position is considered, we want to ask what arguments can be advanced in support of or against that issue. We then want to examine the quality of the arguments. Evaluating flawed arguments often points the way toward other arguments, and the process of formulating, clarifying, and evaluating arguments continues. This method of question and answer is known as dialectic. Dialectic looks a lot like debate, but a big difference lies in the respective goals of the two activities. The goal of debate is to win by persuading an audience that your position is right and your opponent is wrong. Dialectic, on the other hand, is aimed at inquiry. The goal is to learn something new about the issue under discussion. Unlike debate, in dialectic, your sharpest critic is your best friend. Critical evaluation of your argument brings new evidence and reasoning to light. The person you disagree with on a philosophical issue is often the person you stand to learn the most from. That's dialectic. Next is there are some, somewhat that we have to know about what can be done in philosophical. The first is about the truth. As varieties of rational inquiry, it's natural to think that science and philosophy are mainly concerned with getting at the truth about things. There are some interesting and some confused challenge to the idea that philosophy and science are truth-oriented. Then there are two questions. What is it for a claim to be true? How do we determine that a claim is true? The truth of a claim is quite independent of how or whether we know it to be true. If you are not sure about this, consider the claim that there is, like an example, there are someone who believe that in the other planets, maybe there are intelligence life, but others claim that there is no intelligent life in other planets. So whether, I assume we don't know which of these two claims is true, but truly one of them is. Whichever of this claim is true, its being true doesn't depend in any way on whether or how we know it to be true. But then what is it for a claim to be true? The ordinary everyday notion of truth would have it that a claim is true if the word is the way the claim says it is. For a simple way, what the claim says, it is the reality. That's what we call it true. The next is about arguments. The common sense everyday way to assess a claim for truth or falsity is to consider the reason for holding it or rejecting it. Sometimes good reasons take the form of simple observation. An argument is a reason for taking something to be true. Arguments consist of two or more claims, one of which is a conclusion. The conclusion is the claim that the arguments purpose to give a reason for believing. The other claims are the premises. The premises of an argument taken together are offered as a reason for believing its conclusion. So if we want to know more about that, let's take a look to these two examples of that. The first line is, Sam is a line cook. The premises is line cooks generally have good of kitchen skills. And then the conclusion is, so Sam can probably cook well. And then the next example is, Sam is a line cook. The premises, line cooks generally are paid very well. So Sam is probably a millionaire. What do you think, which one of these two is the truth? The premises in the first argument provide pretty good support for the conclusion. Then we can think that Sam can cook well because the reason, the premises or the reason can support the conclusion. The premises in the second argument give us no reason to think Sam is a millionaire. So whether or not the premises of an argument support its conclusion is a key issue in evaluating the truth or falsity on the argument. Then the next is fallacies. A fallacy is just a mistake in reasoning. Humans are not nearly as rational as we'd like to suppose. In fact, we are so prone to certain sorts of mistakes in reasoning. Fallacies may be created unintentionally, or they may be created intentionally in order to deceive other people. The term fallacy is not a precise term. One reason is that it is ambiguous. It can refer either to a kind of error in argument, a kind of error in reasoning, including in arguments, definition, explanation, and so forth, and a false belief, or the cause of any of the previous errors, including what are normally referred as rhetorical technique. So I think that's all from me. The next material will be explained by Hikmah. Time is yours.
Okay, thanks for the challenge. I will explain about ancient philosophy. Next slide, please. Okay, the birth of philosophical thought began in the 6th century BC with the collapse of myths and fairy tales that had been used to justify every natural phenomenon and the beginning of the stage of rationalizing human thought about the universe. The pre-Socratic era and the golden age of philosophy are both included in ancient Greek philosophy. The philosophers of that time were Thales, Pythagoras, and Protagoras. Meanwhile, the golden age of philosophy was enlivened by figures such as Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. So we will begin with a quick tour of pre-Socratic thought. In this era, the three famous philosophies were Thales, Pythagoras, and Protagoras. They are known as natural philosophers. The first one is Thales. Thales is considered a myth breaker by shifting the myth-centric way of thinking to logocentric. Logocentric means based on science and logic. Thales has several characters like scientists such as rationality, curiosity, tentativity, objectivity, and creativity. Thales believed that all things are from water and all things are resolved into water. The next one is Pythagoras. We are probably quite familiar with the word Pythagoras, right? Yep, Pythagoras is one of the mathematical science that is even still used until now to calculate one side of a right triangle using a formula such as C kuadrat sama dengan A kuadrat ditambah B kuadrat. But let's ignore it that because the material I brought isn't even close to any numbers. I'm here not to talking about that, so let me carry on. So Pythagoras is known as one of the first revolutionary in philosophy and mathematics. Another prominent teaching from Pythagoras was metempsychosis. Metempsychosis in philosophy refers to transmigration of the soul, especially its reincarnation after death. His belief that every soul is immortal, so that upon death, the soul will pass to another body. This transfer is believed to help the soul achieve perfection and what we call reincarnation. One of his philosophies about life is, if you can bear the weariness of learning, you must bear the bitterness of stupidity. The last one of pre-Socratic era is Protagoras. Protagoras was the most prominent and one of the first sophists. He is a philosopher, orator, and debater in addition to being philosopher. He was also well known as
tanpa pakan kah? Alami saja ke 600.
I'm sorry. Oh yeah. Okay, I will carry on. He was also known as a teacher who influenced many young people at the time. In his piece titled Periton means about the gods, Protagoras said that concerning the gods, I'm unsure whether they exist or not, and I'm also unsure about their nature. These are difficult issues to answer, and life is brief. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, we get into the golden age of philosophy. The pinnacle of Greek philosophy was reached in Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle, and defined as the golden age of philosophy. The first one in this era is Socrates, the one who said, strong mind discuss ideas, average mind discuss events, and weak minds discuss people. Socrates was a philosopher from Athens, Greece. Socrates was known as a simple man, and his nature walked around the city studying human behavior from various aspects of his life. During his life, Socrates never left any writings, so the main source of Socrates' thought comes from the writings of his student. His student is Plato. Socrates prefers to learn about social phenomena, human behavior, social politics, and political ethics in general instead of nature like the other philosopher. Conversation is Socrates' approach for philosophizing and teaching philosophy to others. Unfortunately, some Athenians sued him. They accused Socrates of disobeying the city ruling gods, introducing a new religion, and corrupting the souls of the Athenian youth. Then Socrates met his death in the prison of Athens with the punishment of drinking a cup of poison. The second one, we got Plato. At the age of 20, Plato met Socrates and studied with him. Plato became a loyal student of Socrates until the end of his life. Plato emphasized that humans are social beings. Humans can be able to stand alone. They definitely need each other. Human behavior, he was the one say human behavior flows from three main three main sources. The first one is desire, emotion, and knowledge. He also stated that be kind to others because everyone we meet is facing a tough struggle. And the last one from the golden age of philosophy is Aristotle. Aristotle, the one who stated, knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom. He became the pioneer of the development of the study of formal logic and various other fields of scientific philosophy. Aristotle believed that every one aspect of human life can be used as an object of thought and analysis. He emphasized that the universe is ruled by rational rules and not by chance, magic, or the will of God alone. I think that's all from the Asian philosophy material. Then I leave it up to the next presenter. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for the chance given to me. I would like to continue the presentation today with the next material is the uses of philosophy. So philosophy comes from Greek words meaning that is love of wisdom. Philosophy uses the tools of logic and reason to analyze the ways in which humans experience the world. Unconsciously, we need a deeper understanding of philosophy in order to answer the various questions of life like who I am, who should I live, should I do what society tells me to do, or what is the nature of mind, language, and thought, and etc. And as you can see on the screen, there are two aspects based on the page American Philosophical Association. In here, the first aspect is general uses of philosophy, and the second is the use of philosophy in educational pursuit. Next slide, please. Yes. General uses of philosophy. There are 4 points in here. The first is general problem solving. General uses of philosophy in here means that the benefit when we learn about philosophy as a students and about problem solving, it contributes to student capacity to organize idea and issue to deal with question of value and to extract what is essential from masses of information. It's also helps students to synthesize a variety of views or perspective into a unified whole. And the next point is communication skill. In here, it helps students to express what is distinctive about their views, enhance their ability to explain difficult materials, and help to eliminate ambiguity and vagueness from student writing and speech. And the next is persuasive powers. It's mean in here that students learn to build and defend their own view, appreciate company position, and indicate forcefully why they consider their own view preferable to alternative. This capacity can be developed not only through reading and writing in philosophy, but also through the philosophical dialogue in or outside classroom. This is so much part of going philosophical education. And the last point is writing skill. Philosophy teach interpretive writing through its examination of challenging texts, comparative writing through emphasis on fairness to alternative positions, argumentative writing through developing student ability to establish their own view, and descriptive writing through detail of concrete example. Maybe we can use when we write a paper or essay or journal. Next slide, please. Yeah, the last point is about the uses of philosophy in educational pursuit. The general uses of philosophy just described are obviously of great academic value. It should be clear that the study of philosophy has intrinsic rewards as an unlimited quest for the understanding of important, challenging problem. But philosophy has further uses in deepening in education, both in college and in the many activity professional or personal that follow graduation. As you can see on the screen, there are 2 parts in here. The first is understanding other discipline, and the second is development of of sound methods of research analysis. For the first, understanding other discipline, many important questions about the discipline, such as the nature of its concept and its relation to other disciplines. So in educational itself, we should understand the other discipline science, like discipline in law, discipline in business, in non-academic career, and etc. Because it's have relation each other. And the second is development of sound methods of research and analysis. In here is we can use philosophy to frame hypotheses, do research, and put problem into manageable form. Philosophical thinking strongly emphasizes clear formulation of idea and problem, selection of relevant data, and objective method for assessing ideas and proposal. I think that's enough from me. Thank you.
Okay, I think that's all from our group 1 presentation. Next, we will open the Q&A session. But first, I want to make sure that in today's session, Q&A, I would like to limit the question first to 5 questions. Then later, if we have time after we answer the question, we will open the next session again. So whoever want to ask, to Mr. Andi Muhammad Shukri, time is yours. Please, every group member to take notes to all the questions, please. Time is yours.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. It's very interesting discussion this afternoon. My question is, I am particularly interested with the session in which you were talking about 3 major philosophers in the ancient one. In this case, what's his name again? Siapa namanya yang ketiga tadi?
Hikmah.
Protagoras.
Oh, Hikmah. Oh, Protagoras. Kukira yang presentasi, sorry. I'm so sorry.
Yeah. His
Wait a
idea about the concept or the existence, whether God exists or not, is very interesting. Since, yeah, he can conclude that you cannot be sure whether God exists or not, and it's difficult to prove that. My question is, nowadays we have some few which doesn't perceive the idea of God, which sometimes we call it agnostic. And it's particularly a major population, especially in Western Europe. My question is, in relation to the philosophy.
I'm sorry, Kak, we can hear your voice clearly.
You know agnostic, right?
Oh, sorry, Kak, we can still hear you.
Hello?
Oh,
Can you hear me now?
okay, Kak.
Okay. Are you familiar with the term of agnostic?
No, agnostic, the one who doesn't believe in God?
The one who cannot prove whether God exists or not.
Yes, I'm sorry. Okay.
It is a majority population, especially in Western Europe. My question is, in relation to this philosophy, how far do you think this philosophy view has an influence towards their way of thinking? Has the philosophy had an influence toward their way of thinking, that they believe that, we cannot truly prove that God exists or not? So yeah, we don't believe that religion things. So that is my question. What influence does philosophy has toward, say, people of agnostic view? Thank you so much.
Okay,
Thank you for the question. Then Hikmah, do you get it?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Then the next is to Miss Andi Rasida Basar. Time is yours.
Okay, thank you for the chance. I want to asking about Hikmah's statements. She said that Socrates never wrote anything. I'm wondering why he never wrote anything.
I'm sorry, can you repeat?
I want asking about your statement. You say that Socrates never wrote anything. And so my question is why Socrates never wrote anything?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, the next, Miss Arnisan.
Okay, thanks for the change. My question is about uses of philosophy, the last presenting. My question is there any impact the use of philosophy in education? Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for the nice question. To Miss Aisha Aminik, do you get the question?
Yes.
Okay,
got it.
thank you. The next is to Mr. Andi Satrianto Patta. Time is yours.
Thank you so much for your giving me this chance. So my question is about the ancient philosophy and the modern philosophy. So can you tell me about, can you compare actually the weaknesses and the strengths between those are? So in the ancient, what is the weaknesses and compare with the modern philosophy right now? Do you get it, my point?
Can you repeat?
Okay, can you give me the strength and the weaknesses of the ancient philosophy compared with the modern philosophy right now?
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you for the question. The next is the last for this session. To Miss Herlina Hamzah. Time is yours.
Okay, thanks for the chance that has given to me. I wanna ask about the golden age of philosophy. The statement of Plato. He said that human behavior flows from three main sources: desire, emotion, and knowledge. My question is why he said like that? Why he said that human behavior flows from these three main sources? That's all. Thank you.
Okay, to Miss Hikmah, do you get the question?
Yes, I get it.
Okay, thank you very much. Then we close the first session of Q&A. Then later, if we have time after we answer it, we will open next session again. But first, please wait a minute.
So I will answer Andi Rasida question.
Okay, time is yours.
Okay, Andi Rasida question is about why Socrates never wrote anything, right? Socrates never write anything.
Yes.
Okay. Socrates, how to? She is like a many great ancient thinkers. Never wrote anything down because he found writing to be inferior to dialogue as a method of inquiry. Everything we know about what he said, did, or true comes to us from others. So the reason why Socrates never write anything is because he found writing to be inferior to dialogue as a method of inquiry. Any additional from my friend Hikmah?
I want to give some addition.
Okay.
Socrates built academy, but almost every of the philosopher built academy, but Socrates never let them students to pay for the academy. That's why he never left any writing, because he thought if he writing something, that must be some spend of money to buy the books. I think that's my addition. How about
Miss Rasida? Andi Rasida.
Rasida?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next question to Miss Hikmah or Aisha Amini. Do you want to answer the question?
Yes.
Okay, to Miss Aisha Amini, time is yours.
Yeah, thank you for the chance given to me. The question is there any impact the use of philosophy in education? Maybe I can give example in teaching, exactly for student. So the study of philosophy helps students to develop both their capacity and their inclination to do critical thinking. So by philosophy, they can use they can have critical thinking. They can develop their opinion, their thinking to be more critic of some topic, sometimes or some that given by the teacher. Thank you.
Okay, how about Miss Arnisan? Do you get the point or do you have any suggestion?
Okay, thanks. I got the point.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Then to Miss Hikmah, do you want to answer another question?
I try to answer to Kak Andi Satrianto Patah's question.
Okay,
about-
time is yours.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the question is about the strength and weak of old and modern philosophy. So modern philosophy learns a lot and absorb from the old philosophy. So if we say the weakness or the strength from the modern and the old, I think there's no the weakness or the strength, because the philosopher still observe from the old, and they like to fix some from the old philosopher. So there's no the weakness or the strength in my opinion. So what about Mr. Andi Satrianto?
Okay. I think that's a good point. Yeah, I get it. The point. There's not. It means there's nothing. The weak and the strength. Yeah, because it only developed by the first one. Okay. Thank you for your question answer. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, how about? Okay, thank you for the nice question and the really nice explanation from Hikmah. Then I want to ask if Hikmah have any answer again. Let Hikmah.
Yes. Indah, please next slide.
Okay, wait. Wait a minute. This one. Hikmah, you are muted.
Okay, I'm sorry. Kak Herlina's question said that why he said that human behavior flows from three minds: that desire, emotion, and knowledge. Gini loh, I'm sorry. Plato, the one, he's the student of Socrates. So Socrates is the philosopher of human behavior. He's not the nature. So Socrates always use human behavior as an object to what else? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I will explain in bahasa. I will combine my bahasa. So Socrates object is human. So his research about human. Here's research about human, and all about his philosophy are human, and Plato got it from Socrates. So she said that desire, emotion, and knowledge, because emotion and knowledge is the first one, because this emotion and knowledge is the first main of our behavior. Knowledge is, as semakin tinggi our knowledge, semakin bagus our human behavior, our behavior. And I think, how about Kak Herlina? Kak Herlina?
Ya, berarti, can I respond in bahasa Indonesia?
Yes, please. Thank you so much. Thanks in advance.
To make it clear ya.
Yes, yes.
Jadi kalau katanya, wait a minute, sorry. Jadi kalau katanya Hikmah tadi, because Plato is Socrates students, which study about human behavior, who always menjadikan manusia sebagai objeknya, makanya dia pun terpengaruh untuk mempelajari tentang hal itu. Nah, Plato menyimpulkan bahwa desire, emotion, and knowledge merupakan 3 hal yang
penting.
Ya, hal yang penting dari manusia karena karena itu yang paling utama yang dinilai dari seorang manusia.
Dari perilaku seorang manusia, ya. This is just one of his quotes. There are more quotes about. There is more quotes by Plato that I can't show it. This is one.
Okay, thank you. I try to absorb it. Okay, thank you.
So, thank you for the answer from Ms. Hikmah. So the last question from Andi Muhammad Shukri, how about that? Do you have any answer now? Or maybe...
This question is kind of our opinion, so I give it up to the audience if they have any opinion about this question. Please help me. This is quite pretty good question.
Maybe you can to Mr. Dharmawan Gunawan. What's wrong?
Yeah.
Okay. Time is yours.
I'm interested with the Muhammad Shukri question, I think, because it's basics of philosophy. When we talk about philosophy, we start from there. About the question about agnostic, right? Could you back in the first page of your PowerPoint?
Okay, wait a minute. This one? Or the first?
Al-Farabi. You have Al-Farabi there.
Wait. Farabi.
Al-Farabi. Yang di atas.
My slide.
Oh, sorry. This one?
Yes. If we see these 3 philosophers, Plato, Aristotle, Al-Farabi.
3 orang yang saya tanya.
Al-Farabi is you have for the group 1, you have a reason why you put these 3. Why
I
you
will
put
ask
this
from Mr. Andi Egi Setiawan.
because if we see this the red line, the Plato, Aristotle, Al-Farabi, I think we will answer the question of the
Actually,
Muhammad Shukri.
yeah,
For me, because it's a Plato has thinking about the free will. Aristotle is thinking about the predetermination. Al-Farabi is an Islamic philosopher thinking about free will. Also, same thing, same talk with the Plato, and Aristotle same with the Islamic philosopher. The other is Al-Ghazali. Is Al-Ghazali same with the Aristotle? Al-Farabi same with the Plato. Plato thinking is Al-Farabi thing is everything is what happened in this world is of free will, not by the God revelation. But Aristotle and the Al-Ghazali says what everything that happened in this world is based on God revelation, based on already written before in the it's already written in the our holy books. So if the question is why it's the agnostics, the free thinker, atheism does exist, because the roots of this philosophy is Plato, Al-Farabi, Aristotle, and Al-Ghazali is already argue about that. This world separate by two is a free will or predetermination. Determination. Free will means the people free what wanna they do, but Al-Ghazali says, Aristotle says, this already arranged by God, arranged by or already written by God before this world does exist. So the agnostic, the atheism, the free thinker, I think from these three philosophers, why that exists, because even Einstein still Catholic after his die. He still believe 1% in their experiment has impact of God. 1%, 90% maybe he's a free will, but 1% only they put this is already predetermined or already written by God. Thank you. Maybe that's if we wanna correlate inspire people become free thinker, become atheism, because always question what is God, what is this, what is this.
I think,
Sorry, is that a bad connection from Darmawan Syagunawan? So how about Mr. Andi Muhammad Shukri? How do you think about the answer from Mr. Darmawan Syagunawan?
Yeah, I was a little bit lost about the explanation that was being provided by Mr. Dharma Maksha. But to be honest, I'm asking this question. I was asking this question because truly I really interested, because I am keep bombarded by the question. For example, what is the point of praying 5 times a day? How do you know that there is a life after death? So sometimes I am thinking, yeah, I have studied that as men grow, the inflow of information become, if they cannot see something, that they cannot claim it that is true or not. So sometimes I'm thinking, is it really there's a God? But yeah, which is why I'm asking you guys your opinion about the influence of philosophy that really does affect the people thinking sometimes radically toward the concept of, say, life after death or God. But yeah, I think Mr. Darmawansha, I cannot say that I'm satisfied also with the question, with the answer, but yeah, I think he has got point.
Okay.
Uh,
Mr. Darmawansha Gunawan.
sebenarnya perkembangan filsafat itu sekarang pertanyaannya bukan lagi apakah Tuhan itu ada, tapi bagaimana membuktikan bahwa Tuhan itu tidak ada. Itu lebih rumit lagi. Pertanyaan 10-20 tahun yang lalu mungkin pertanyaan filsafat itu adalah bagaimana Tuhan itu ada. Tapi ketika makin ke sini pertanyaannya adalah bagaimana membuktikan Tuhan itu tidak ada malah.
Yeah, right. That's interesting.
Tambahan aja.
Interesting. Yeah.
Kalau bisa, ya. Yeah.
It's really a good explanation from Mr. Darmawansha Gunawan. Thank you very much for the answers. And the question is really interesting to talk about. But how about Ms. Hikmah? Do you have any suggestion maybe or anything about this question?
Okay, in my opinion, it's back to our belief that for us as a Muslim, we don't believe in reincarnation, right? So I don't believe. I'm not. Saya tidak sepaham with Protagoras and Pythagoras that life after there is life after life. That's my answer. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the answer. Okay, I think that's all from our Q&A session. Thank you very much for the nice answer and the nice question from all the participants today. And is there any participate? Wait. Sorry before that. Is there anyone who want to suggest or maybe giving your opinions about this material today?
Halo, sudah semuanya?
Yes, Prof.
Sudah jauh semua kan?
Yes, Prof.
Oke, jadi saya kira kita tidak harus sampai jam 3 ya.
Yes, Prof.
Okay, I was listening to your discussion and I think I will give you review about what have been discussed, but not today. Mungkin minggu depan saya mereview. Yang jelas nanti akan ada tugas lanjutan untuk setiap kelompok yang telah mempresentasikan. Ya, tugasnya sebenarnya tidak berat, mungkin mendekati berat. Jadi nanti ada tindak lanjutnya untuk lebih memahami apa yang telah dipresentasikan. Ini kan direkam ya?
Yes, Prof.
Ya, nanti di-share anunya, kemudian saya nanti bisa memilah apa yang saya bisa review pada saat pertemuan berikut. But that was interesting. Saya kira menarik apa yang diperbincangkan. Kalau Anda bingung, tentang ini itu sudah berhasil, saya kira. Nah, filsafat biasanya itu tidak ada akhirnya itu kalau mau didiskusikan. Ya, karena ujung pangkalnya itu yang kita diskusikan mencari kebenaran. Tapi kebenaran yang kita cari itu adalah kebenaran relatif, bukan kebenaran mutlak. Karena kebenaran mutlak itu hanya Tuhan saja, Allah Subhanahu wa taala. Jadi yang kita ini cari ini adalah kebenaran relatif. Yang kalau dalam dunia akademik disebut dengan kebenaran relatif yang dilakukan melalui penelitian, ya, atau pendekatan ilmiah. Saya kira itu ya. Nanti minggu depan kita ini sebelum dimulai saya akan memberi review apa yang kita diskusikan hari ini. That okay?
Yes, Prof. Thank you.
Saya harap kalau bisa Anda isi absensi ya, bisa oke.
Yes, Prof.
Yes, Prof.
Okay. Good. Thank you saya kira ya. Kita akhiri pertemuan kita hari ini. Saya ucapkan Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Prof.
Thank you, Prof.
Sehat semua ya.
Yes.
Thank you.